Writers and storytellers will often say, when asked how they dream up the stories, that the word dream is the right word. Most stories and books come alive as if in a dream. Often they start with a word or a sentence, an image. The teller often feels like an observer, believe it or not, watching and putting down simply what's happening somewhere. Sure, as a storyteller, I had some idea about the story when I begin, but they never stay where I want them. Why the characters do what they do, how they respond, how the message unfolds, how it's being typed or spoken is surprising. But what didn't surprise me then with this story, that as I began it, it began with a dream. I keep having this dream, Jess said as he sat in the pastor's office. It won't go away. Every night for the past week, I have no idea what it means, but it feels important. Pastor Natalie nodded. Tell me about it. Good, Pastor. In the dream, Jess says, I wake up from a restless sleep. There's a bright light shining in my window. I know it's the middle of the night, but it's as bright as noon. I get up and go to the window and look out, and there's this star. It's big and it's white, like the one we have hanging in church every year. It has many points that go in all directions. The light from the star I see, though, is almost alive. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like I can see it breathing. Does it scare you? The pastor asks. No, that's what's surprising, says Jess. Even the first night I had the dream, it was as if I knew that everything was right with the world. The star was comforting. Since then, when the dream starts, I'm glad it's back. So in the dream, I get up and walk outside to get a better look at it. You know how dreams are. I just walk out the door with no coat on, even though it's a little chilly. There's no one else around. It's a dream. It's like I'm the only one who can see that star. A car drives by, yes, but they don't seem to be part of the star. The light seems to flow around it, not into the car. It's still in the dark. What happens then? Pastor Natalie asks as she makes a note on the paper in front of her. Well, he says, it looks like the star is a couple blocks away from me. So I start walking toward it. It doesn't move. It seems to be pointing, though, somewhere just a few streets over. So I walk in that direction. And the next thing I know, I'm right here in front of our church. The church is really bright from the light of the star. As I get closer, I notice there's a young boy sitting on the curb in front of the church. He must be 8, 9, maybe 10 years old. He's just sitting there smiling. I can hear him humming some song. His eyes are closed, but he's moving gently, kind of in rhythm with his humming. Da-dum, da-dee-dum. Jess starts to hum, something like that, almost like an upbeat chant. Da-dum, da-dum. Do you know the child? Asks the pastor. No, but when he looks up at me, I swear I've seen him before, or at least someone who looks like him. It's that little half smile he gives me. It's not a big ear-to-ear grin. It's just there, satisfied, like, glad to see you. I ask him if he's okay, and he doesn't answer. He just keeps smiling and humming. Are you lost? I ask. Aren't you a little young to be out this time of the night? He moves his head back and forth as if he's thinking about it while still humming. I wake up just like that, and it's morning. It's happened 6 nights in a row, says Jess. So I came to see you. I thought you might be able to help. I'm struck, the pastor responds, by the fact that you say he reminds you of someone. The little bit I know about dreams, she says, is that people in dreams often are different parts of who you are. What about that boy strikes you as familiar? The smile. It's almost contagious. It's open and inviting. He seems pleased to see me again, especially. Again? Yes. It's almost as if he's waiting for me to show up, that he's there just for me. When he sees me, it's like he relaxes and he's satisfied that I've come back. He doesn't seem nervous or upset or even ready to go and do something. He's glad to be there waiting for me. He's patient. That's not like you, though, is it, Jess? The pastor smiles. No, says Jess, I'm not that patient. You know me better than that. I'm surprised that it took me a week to come to see you. Well, the pastor says, I'm not going to try to guess who he is, but maybe your soul is telling you to slow down a little and be patient. Give that some thought. But I do have a suggestion for you. Before going to bed tonight, kind of get the dream primed. Think about the dream and write down questions that you might want to ask the young boy. It only 2 or 3 at the most. Don't overwhelm yourself. That may spur your dreaming brain to give you some answers. Well, it can't hurt, says Jess. I'll let you know after church on Sunday how it works. That night, the dream began as usual. The bright star shining in the window, bright as day. Jess getting up, going outside, and heading toward the star at the church. The young boy is sitting in the normal place in front of the church. He welcomes Jess with that grin. Then he stands and says, since dreams never have to face reality, Jess wasn't surprised to find that in the dream, the boy leads him back around the church, and the church is sitting in the middle of this open area. It's an open space, not a field as such, but just an open stretch all the way to the horizon. The star is now some distance away, but it outlines a path across the sweeping landscape. The boy is running down the lighted path, and Jess starts to move to keep up with him. They soon come to a sheltered area with grass surrounded by tall green trees, like an oasis in the desert. The boy is standing in the center, next to a pool of water. The boy reaches into the pool, gets a handful of the water, and in one single moment laughs out loud and throws the water on Jess. In the moment it takes for Jess to recover, the boy's disappeared again. No sign of him, just the wet footprints where the boy had left the edge of the pool and heading along the path. At first, Jess looks around at him and sees nothing but the starlit area. The church, the neighborhood, the streets, they're all gone. I better find him, thinks the dreaming Jess. Not for him, but for me. I might get lost. I don't know how to get back. So he heads off in the same direction. He hears a sound, looks around and sees nothing. Looks again down the path, and there, in the middle of the path, in the middle of that light, is a man now standing with the young boy. They're laughing as the boy points back at Jess and mimics throwing the water on him. Jess swears that the man gives the boy a high five. Then they move away on down the path, both still silhouetted by the light from the star. Now the man is carrying the boy with a big embrace. The boy waves at Jess and then seems to hold out his arms toward him like a loving hug. Jess wakes with a start. He's still sitting in the recliner in his home office where he had fallen asleep. It's well after midnight. He's awake, but isn't sure if the dream was over or not. His hair is damp, and there are watermarks on the arm of the chair. That's what happened in the dream, Jess says to Pastor Natalie as they sit in the coffee shop in the next afternoon. You can see why I didn't want to wait until church tomorrow to talk to you about it. That's a dream, but it didn't end there. Wait, hold on, said the pastor. Your hair was damp? Was it sweat or, well, water? No, it wasn't sweat. It was damp, like if water dripped from a leaky pipe, or, he paused, if someone threw a handful of water at me. There was no leaky pipe. I looked. It took me a moment or two, Jess says, to get oriented and look around the room. There were no other signs of water or dampness. Then I looked beside my chair, and you see, I'd been sitting there writing down the questions for the dream. I was scribbling a few notes, must have fallen asleep, and the tablet fell next to me. It was wet too. Not soaking wet, but enough to wash away some of what I'd written and make it blurry. What were the questions you had written down? Well, there was just a few scribbles, he said. One was, who are you? Not very creative, huh? The second was, is this some kind of message? The third was, why me? But I don't remember getting any answers. Wait, Jess stops. There was one more thing I just remembered. After the boy waved at me, the man turned around and looked at me too. He waved his hand and indicated that I should come with them. I didn't want to follow them. I just wanted to go back to sleep. That's when I woke up. It seemed like the best way out of the dream. Isn't that funny? Telling myself to wake up in the middle of a dream. The pastor was quiet and looked over the edge of her coffee mug at him. Blurry questions, almost washed away, or a reminder that those aren't the real questions. Let me ramble a minute, she says, still looking at Jess. It might mean the questions are irrelevant. That's why they sort of washed away. Maybe it doesn't matter who the child is, or maybe you already know. Jess kind of turns his head and looks beyond the pastor. She continued, you already know this is a message, or you wouldn't have come here asking me for help. That means you guess there's something spiritual about this dream. Well, yeah, said Jess. It's a star in the heavens. It leads me to the church and a boy sitting there. All that screams spiritual. Pay attention. Pastor Natalie smiles. So far, so good. The third question was, why you? Well, my favorite comeback to that is, why not you? Or, since it's a dream, it is you, because you know within you that you have something to do. The message is from you to you, or perhaps appropriately, it's God's message to you through the Spirit within you. Just gave a slight, thoughtful nod. You know who you are, Jess. You are responding to something within you. Call it your soul. Call it God's Spirit. Call it longing or hoping or just wishful thinking. You're being invited on an adventure, on a journey. Your spiritual journey, call it a pilgrimage, is never done. You know, it's kind of like the church year. Just when we get through another 12 months, we're right back where we started. I know that sounds trite, but when you think you've come to the end, you find it's a new beginning. You already know that, Jess. What will you do about it? The answers aren't in the dream. The answers are for you to find. Do you have the paper with the questions with you? Can I see it? Still quietly nodding, Jess looks at it as he hands her the paper. At the bottom, in a different handwriting than his, are 4 words: baptized, loved, come follow. Welcome to the journey, Jess. You've only just begun.